So we have been able to record the receipt or the cash flow successfully. So immediately you finish, the next thing is to start spending the money. But like I told you, you always have to know the conditions under which the petty cashier would be reimbursed. So if we go through this question, we don't see any condition of reimbursement, right? So we have to use the first condition, which is as and when necessary. So we have to be keeping notes on the balance. So when you pay for an expense, you let and know the balance that you have, so that along the line, if the money is not enough to pay for the next expense, you do the reimbursement. Okay, so let's continue. So the next thing was on the 2nd. So 2nd of June 2007, we paid for stationery. So stationery. Now look at what you are going to do here. The amount is 350. You would first put it under the total column before you push it under the expense column. So we'll first put it under the total, and then we'll put it under the expense stationery column. Okay. The next was on the 4th. We paid for office cleaning. So we put the figure under the total 800, then we push it under office cleaning 800. So at this point, please, one of you should be keeping our balance for us. Okay, so 10,000, we have spent 350 and we have spent 800. How much do we have? Prof. Frank, can you do that for us? So how much do we have as our balance after spending on these two expenses? Okay, I think it's 8,850. So we can still continue spending, right? So we go to the next one, which is 7th June 2007. That is postage stamps. So 200, and then we'll push it under postage 200. So you less it. We have 8,650. In fact, it seems like the money can even cover all the expenses, so we don't need to even be keeping track, right? However, you still have to do that. The next one, on the 9th of June 2007, we paid for local transport. So that one is 100. You push it under travel and transport 100. So Prof. Alexia, we lost you along the line. We're saying after you have finished recording the receipt or the cash flow, you now begin to spend, right? But make sure that you know the conditions for reinvestment. Okay. In this case, they didn't tell us that, oh, we should reimburse every fortnight, or the cash flow should not fall below a certain amount. So it means we are using the first policy, which is as and when necessary. So with the 10,000, when you spend, you let them know the balance, so that if the balance cannot pay for the next expense, you do the reimbursement. And the reimbursement here means you would balance the petty cash book. Okay. And I think we'll do that very shortly so that you appreciate how it is done. On the 11th of June 2007, we paid for office cleaning again, 700. So under office cleaning, 700. Okay. The next one was on the 13th of June 2007. We paid for stationery. This thing is very easy. put it under stationery 400. Then on the 14th, we paid for local transport again, 150. Then on the 17th, we paid for postage stamps, 400. Okay. Then next, that's 19th, we paid for office cleaning, 800. June 21st, 2007, we paid for postage stamps, 500. Then 22nd, we paid for another office cleaning, 700. And then on the 25th, we paid a creditor, which is Ade. So you put the name of the creditor under the detail column, and the total is 1,200. You put that figure under the ledger column when you pay a creditor or an individual. Okay, I now understand why my network was fluctuating. The rains are dropping now. Okay, 28, please. I think the money is still enough. Oh, let me get the total and see. But I think it's enough. Let me sum the expense.
Yeah, so the money will be enough.
Okay. Okay, so we have spent only 6,300, so it's enough. It can cover. 28 June 2007. We paid for office cleaning, 600. Then finally, 30th June 2007, we paid for postage stamps, 300. That's all. So what is left is for you to balance your petty cash book. In other words, do the reimbursement. Okay. So please pay attention with the balancing because it can get a bit tricky. The first thing you have to do is to get the total on this side, the right-hand side, okay, which is the credit side. The receipt side is the debit side. So let's get the total for all of them, right? And I think it's 7,200 for this one. Then you do same for stationery, travel and transport, or transport and so I'm using my Excel so I can easily do this. Oh no. Okay, so this is, I should do my calculation here. Auto sum of this, and then out. Okay, so stationery 750, transport 250, etc. So that's the first thing you have to do. Get the total on the right hand side. When you are done, right? For the expenses, you can underline them because you don't need them again. Then you leave the total column because you are now going to balance it with the receipt column. Okay. So now let's look at something here. The receipt side is 10,000 and the total column is 7,200. So like we have been doing with balancing our account, we find the difference and that becomes the balance carried down. So 10,000 minus 7,200, that should be 2,800. So this will be your balance carried down. What date are you going to use? Because this is the end of the period, you can use the closing date. If it was within the month, then make sure you use a date that is possible for you to continue spending or continue to pay for the next expense, right? But here, that's the last transaction. So we can use the closing date, 30th June 2007. That's your balance carried down. After that, you know, accounting, our totals are very important. So you put the total for the receipt side and the total side like this. Okay. And then this carry down will be brought down to the next period, first July 2007, balance brought down, and that will go under the receipt column, 2,800. So since the petty cash for this business is operated on 10,000 cash float, you have to reimburse the petty cashier, right? So on the 1st of July 2007, we are going to give the petty cashier cash, which should be equal to the total that he has spent, 7,200. So that when you add it to the balance, you always have the 10,000 cash float. And that is it for your petty cash. Very simple, isn't it? Any questions from my professors? Question time. No question. Okay. So I think we can try another illustration where probably within the period would have to do some reinvestment. So let me go down and see. Okay, let's check this question. 2013. It says he maintains an interest of 80,000. 80,000. I think I want one where we'll do the reinvestment. 38. I think this one, yeah, this question will do reinvestment within the period. So let's look at this question. When we are done with this question, I think my professors can take an exercise for me with another question on the petty cash. If you don't want the exercise, please ask me questions. But please, are we okay? Prof. Alexia, Sandra, and Frank, are we okay with what we just discussed on the illustration?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So I'm
So
okay
let's
with
take,
it.
yeah, let's take this second illustration. So this is Jonah keeps a petty cash book. So in the books of Jonah, we are going to prepare the petty cash book. So here again, he says he maintained a petty cash with an interest of 80,000. So the interest is 80,000. And the following are the petty cash transaction for the month of February 2011. So look at it. February 1st, petty cash balance. So you remember what I told you, that some questions, they'll give you the balance. So if the balance is 10,000 and he's operating 80,000 interest, then it means that we need to top up 70,000. That's what the second. This examiner is very benevolent. Some questions will not give you this second transaction because they expect you that if the interest is 80,000 and you already have a balance of 10,000, then you should know that you have to give cash of 70,000 to make up for the cash flow to balance 80,000. So always pay attention to that. Okay, so let me put in my receipt, which is the first column, date, details, and then total. The total column is always important. And here, the expenses again, the examiner has made it simple for us. So it says you are required to prepare the petty cash book with analysis expense as follows. So you have, okay, so analysis column for traveling, You have traveling expense, postage and stationery, petrol, cleaning and leisure. So that is also what you have to do. So traveling, and then postage and stationery. And the next one is petrol. Then you have cleaning, and finally leisure. So the examiners always try to make the work a bit easier for us by giving us the various expenses analysis. But if the examiner does not do that, you would have to do the categorization yourself, and it's not difficult. You just have to go through and group the expenses. Okay. But I think sometimes they give it to us because they want to avoid, the variety with which students may be grouping the expenses. Okay. So the first thing we need to record is our cash float. In this case, we're given 1st February 2011. There was a balance of 10,000. So the balance is put under the receipt side. And we know we have to top up, but the question tells us on the second they did the top up by giving the cash of 70,000. So we now have the impress, which is 80,000. So we can go and spend it. So please, Prof. Frank, I think here we will need you because this is a question where I think along the line, the money will get finished and we have to do reimbursement. So let's quickly see if we can even locate that before we begin. So 15,000 is the first one. So 80,000 minus 15,000, we have 65 to spend. Minus 2 and 18, that will be 20. So minus 20,000. And then this one 3 and then 1 5, that's minus 4,500. We still have more. Minus 13,500, minus 12,000, then minus 7,000, then minus 5,000. Okay. So I think that when you do the monitoring, when you get to this point, you have to reimburse because the balance that you would have will be 3,000 and cannot pay for the next expense, which is 25,000. Okay. So when you get here, you have to stop and reimburse the petty cash. So let's do it together. Please, are my professors with me or they are not with me? Let me hear your voices. I feel like I'm alone.
We are with you.
Okay, great. So the first expense was on the 3rd February. We paid one of the creditors, Anita. So Anita's amount was 15,000. Always put it under the total. Then you put it under the ledger since this is an individual creditor we are paying. Okay. Then on the 6th of February 2011, sometimes for your date, in order to avoid repetition, right, you can just put it on top February 2011 so that this will be one, this will be one, this will be, oh, this thing doesn't want to. Okay, so this will be one. Oh, I said that when I type the one, then this thing is giving me 1900 as if I was born in 1900. Okay, I think I need to change the, okay, automatically it has set it to date, that's why. So 1, Okay, then this will be 2, so that you don't repeat. Wow. This is my Excel sheet. Behave yourself. Okay, so I have it now. Okay, so the next one was on the 6th. We paid for taxi fare. So taxi fare 2,000. That will go under traveling, right? Then on the 8th, we paid for another traveling expense. So traveling expense 18,000. That will also go under traveling 18,000. On the 12th, we have stamps. We bought stamps. So stamps will go under which column, my dear professors? Stamps. Would it go under petrol, cleaning, leisure, traveling, or postage?
Postage.
Postage, okay. 3,000. I intentionally asked this because at time a student put stamps under petrol, and I was wondering. Okay, so the next one is envelopes. Envelopes are also used in posting gifts or whatever, so it will also go under postage and stationery. 18th, we bought petrol for generator, 13,500. Well, when I found out later, he said, say examination pressure. 20th, postage stamps. So postage stamps. 12,000. Then that will go under postage, 12,000. Okay, and then the 21st, we bought petrol for generator. That's 7,000. Okay, then finally on the 22nd, we paid for cleaning, 5,000. So that'll go under cleaning, 5,000. Good. So when we did the analysis, you realize that at this point, let me sum them up and see how much we get. Okay, so when you sum up, you have 77,000. So you have spent 77,000 out of the 80,000. Your balance is 3,000, and the balance cannot pay for the next expense, which is on the 23rd, 25,000. So you have to stop, balance, and reimburse before you can continue to spend. That's the idea behind the impress system. So it means that here we have to pause and do the reimbursement. So the reimbursement means that balance it like we did the balancing in the first example. So let's do the balancing. First, get the total on this side. Make sure you stretch it along all the expenses. Okay. And underline these ones. And then I'll come and do it between the total and the receipt column. So definitely the carry down will be 3,000. And so here you see, you can't use the closing date because you have expenses to pay for on the 23rd. So worst case scenario, you can use the 22nd date to do your balancing, or better still the 23rd. If you use 30th, then how are you going to continue to spend on the 23rd, 24th in that way? So when reimbursement is done within the period, use the date that will make you make it possible for you to continue with spending for the rest of the month. So here we can use the 22nd for our carry down. We put in the totals, 80,000, 80,000. Then the carry down will be brought down at the opposite side under the total 3,000. So we still use the 22nd, balance brought down. Okay, so we have a balance of 3,000. We have to give the petty cashier cash of how much he spent, which is 77,000, so that he can be able to pay for the next expenses. Please, is it okay? Does it make sense to all of us? If you are confused, please prompt me. Okay. So now that we have reimbursed the petty cashier, he has 80,000 to continue spending. So on the 23rd, we said that we paid John a creditor. So that will be John 25,000. We put it under the ledger column 25,000. The next is 24th. We paid for petrol 26,000. I think the money can take care of the rest of it. So petrol 26,000. 25th, we bought stamps. That will go under postage. Then 26th, we bought envelopes. So that will also go under postage. Then 27th, paid for traveling, 6,000. I'll go under traveling, 6,000. And finally, on another 27th, we paid for cleaning, 5,000. And that will also go under cleaning, 5,000. Okay, so there's the last expense, right? So you always need to balance it at the end of the period. So you get the totals. Let's do the totals. So 75,000, right? Then we get for the other columns as well. Then we underline those ones. Then we now concentrate on the total and the receipt column, right? So our balance carried down is going to be 5,000. Here you can use the closing date because there's nothing left for you to do. Or if you use the 27th, nobody will penalize you, but it's preferred you use the closing date, which is 28th February, right? Then put in the totals. So this carry down will be brought down on the 1st of March. So March 1. Balance brought down. 5,000. Then we have to reimburse by giving him the cash of the total spent, which is the 75,000, so that the cash flow will go back to its original 80,000 balance. And that is it. Okay, so at least you have experienced it when you have to do reimbursement within the period, right? Okay, please watch out. There are some questions where as you spend, you get to a certain date and then they will tell you reimburse. So when you also get to that date, balance it and reimburse before you continue. So I think I'll pause here for questions or suggestions. And then possibly, since we are done with petty cash book, I'll give you one to try as an exercise in the next session. Live, as in live. Would rejoin the session? I'll put the question on the screen and you start work. When the session ends, you submit your work immediately. I don't want to give it as assignment. And possibly, I'd want you to share your video so that I see that you are working and you are not copying. Is it a fair deal? Talk to me now.
So please, I can put on my video where I am.
Oh, your environment is not conducive, or you don't want me to?
Yes.
You don't. The ladies are hiding their faces. Anyway, so okay, in that case, I think I'll spare you with but one of these days you'd have to share your video so that I see whether you are paying attention or you assure me that you always pay attention.
Yes, please. Always pay attention.
We always feel
Why is the gentleman quiet? Okay, so please, any questions for me? If no questions, then I will share the exercise on the page. This time, I'll make it, I think I'll pick a question which is not in the past question, so that at least I see whether you are getting some little help elsewhere. So I'm going to give you a totally complete different question to try your hands on for me as exercise in the next session. So please, our class is supposed to end 11:30. So I think you'd have a maximum of 30 minutes to complete it and submit onto the private pages, right? Okay.